What's going on, guys? It's Jimmy here. Welcome to our daily show. We discuss everything going on here in our country, in Washington, D.C., everything you need to know about on a daily basis: money, investing, the stock market, the fourth stimulus package update, stimulus check update. We cover it all here on our YouTube channel. If you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel, make sure to click the subscribe button down below right now. It's completely free to do so. And remember that new videos come out here every day at 10 a.m., 3 p.m., and 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, so you don't miss out on new videos. And as always, thanks for hitting the like button for us down below. We got a lot to talk about here today. The UN has a vote on Russia, and I'll give you the details on what happened there. And Senator Joe Manchin proposes a new stimulus package from Joe Manchin himself. That's right. We're going to go over the latest details in this video. Here we go. The United Nations voted to demand that Russia end the war as attacks intensify on Ukraine and the capital city of Kyiv. Only 5 countries, including North Korea, voted the UN resolution condemning Russia. There's a lot of United Nations countries here. Here's how the vote went down. The United Nations voted 141 to 5 with 35 absentations to demand Russia halt the war, which is an absolutely just overwhelming lopsided vote to see that. I mean, normally you don't see that much of a lopsided vote on anything, right? You can't get that many people to agree on anything right nowadays. The vote came after the 193-member assembly convened in its first emergency session in a quarter of a century. Wow. Ukrainian President Zelensky, in a televised address to the nation 1 week in the hostilities, rallied his people and said, "During this time, we have truly become one. We forgave each other. We started loving each other. We help each other. We are worried for each other." And can you guess who the 5 countries are that voted against Russia or voted for Russia not ending the war? Can you take a guess? Well, here they are. The 5 countries who voted against condemning Russia's invasion of Ukraine include Russia, Belarus, basically Russia, Eritrea, country I've almost never heard of, North Korea, and Syria. China did not vote for Russia. They abstained. Pakistan abstained as well. So basically only Russia, Korea, and 1 or 2 Russia allies voted to not have Russia end the war. Meanwhile, Putin has hit a new low yet again and is now attacking residential areas with missile strikes. Yeah, as of today, you can see some of these photos here of really, really sad residential areas. Yeah, you can see some of these photos here of clearly people's homes, people's residential areas just destroyed. Just destroyed. And there's probably going to be a lot more to come. And speaking of new lows from Putin, instead of, trying to man up and actually take the country, they just tried to send in an assassination plot against the Ukrainian President Zelensky. And Putin's own people sent information to the Ukrainian president, and they disarmed and destroyed, quote, destroyed the assassination plot against the Ukrainian president. You can see here Russian intelligence officers opposed to their country's invasion of Ukraine reportedly tipped off officials in Kyiv who thwarted an assassination plot against President Zelensky. So Russia's own intelligence officers tipped off President Zelensky about a Russian assassination attempt against Zelensky. Ukraine said that these special forces were, quote, eliminated, and that they came to kill their presidents. They were eliminated, and we will not give our president or our country to anyone. This is our land. Get out of here. Meanwhile, Democratic Senator Joe Manchin, I say Democratic Senator because he actually sat with the Republicans last night in President Biden's speech. He says he sat with the Republicans because he wants to show unity for bipartisanship, and that unity needs to be alive, and we need to work with both sides of the aisle. So he sat with the Republicans last night. Meanwhile, Senator Joe Manchin, you can see here, proposes a new version of the Build Back Better. Now, this isn't something in writing with actual specifics, but he did go into a broad kind of ideas of what he would like to see, some ideas of what he would like to see in a new Build Back Better stimulus package. Here's some ideas of what he says. Manchin said he could support a reconciliation package that reforms the tax code and lowers the cost of prescription drugs if the money raised is split between spending on new climate change proposals and deficit reduction and fighting inflation. So he actually wants to reduce the deficit, which means the package would be more than paid for. So I discussed this previously. This really wouldn't make that much of a difference, but this is something he has just kind of principles for. So, for example, if the bill more than pays for the package, let's just say the package is 1.8 trillion, and they have pay-fors that are, say, 2 trillion. They have tax revenue coming in from corporations and, say, wealthy individuals. That's 2 trillion. They could reduce the deficit by, say, $200 billion. Okay. Sounds like a lot. Sounds like a lot. And it is. But in the big scheme of things, getting something passed is more important for the people because, well, there's so many people hurting right now. Putting money in people's pockets. 63% of people are struggling right now, living paycheck to paycheck. Living in poverty right now or behind on bills. For example, making the national deficit go from $30 trillion to $29.8 trillion is going to make no difference in anybody's lives. Whether the national, and remember, the national deficit is basically growing by the day. In 1990, the national deficit was around 3 to 4 trillion. Now it's 30 trillion, and that was through Republican and Democratic presidents. Remember that former President Donald Trump, a Republican, added about $8 trillion to the deficit. Biden's probably going to add somewhere around there too, whether it's Republican or Democrat presidents. That's just about how much it costs to run the country nowadays. So if they lower the deficit from 30 trillion to 29.8 trillion from this one bill, ultimately, it's not going to really make much difference at all. But I get the symbolic nature of it. It's a lot of money when you think about it. But what's more important here is passing a bill that helps people's lives, right? And here's what Manchin says, some of the things that he would like to see. Again, just a broad overview. It's not something in writing or specifics, but here's what he says. The West Virginia senator clarified he hasn't made any formal counterproposal to the White House, but is sketching the outlines of a proposal that he could support, along with the rest of the Senate Democrat caucus. Whatever Manchin ultimately agrees to would have a different name than Build Back Better, because he just pretty much hates it. He probably wants to make it the Manchin Build Back, the Manchin Act, right? The Senator Joe Manchin Act. Maybe he would pass that, right? Maybe he would vote for that, right? There's not a proposal. There's just a conversation. It just makes all the sense in the world. The one thing that we as Democrats all agreed on was the 2017 Trump tax cuts he's referring to that the Republicans passed through the reconciliation process. Um, that was passed by all Republicans. That's when Republicans controlled the House, the Senate, and the presidency. He says those cuts were weighted unfairly. So if you want to fix the tax cuts and make everyone pay their fair share, whether it's the very wealthiest or the corporations that pay nothing, there are a lot of large corporations in the Fortune 500 or the S&P 500 that actually pay no taxes. He says, I think the president identified that last night. You have to fix the tax code. And we'll be talking about more specifics here in upcoming episodes as we learn more details. Then you find out what revenues you have from that if you fix it. If you fix it. Manchin also said there's broad agreement among Democrats on passing legislation to reduce the cost of prescription drugs, and suggested that modeling a program on what the Department of Veterans Affairs, the VA, does to negotiate lower prices for military veterans would be a good idea. Remember that the U.S. pays the highest cost of prescription drug prices in the world by a lot, by a long shot. It's really, really sad what the large pharmaceutical companies have been able to get away with. And sadly, they're large donors to a lot of politicians. And reform needs to change there. Reform needs to change there. And if they're able to get this done, this would lower the cost of prescription drug pricing and prices for over 100 million Americans. So this is something that drastically needs to be done, because every time you pay for a prescription or even pay for a co-pay prescription, it's money coming out of your pocket, and that adds up over the course of the years, especially over the course of the months. So this is something that needs to be done. Over 150 million Americans, so half the country or more, pay for prescription drugs, whether it's through insurance, co-pays. It all adds up, and it's very expensive. Manchin says the other thing that we should do is agree on the high pharmaceutical prices so you allow the negotiations. And I just said the organization that does the best job is the VA. The Veterans Affairs gets some of the lowest prices. Maybe we should look at them and let them basically do that for Medicaid and Medicare recipients. It would also be for everybody, even private insurance companies, but I believe they want to just let one of these organizations do the negotiations for everybody on behalf of the whole country. Manchin says that half the revenue raised from tax reform and prescription drug reform should be used to lower the deficit and fight inflation. And I get where he's going with this. I agree with what he's saying in principle here. And the other half should be spent on whatever 10-year program has the most support in the Democratic caucus. So I guess he is siding with the Democrats, I guess. He suggests, even though he sat with the Republicans last night, right? He suggests spending on an array of initiatives to fight climate change would likely unify his Democratic colleagues. Again, even though he sat with the Republicans last night, right? Half of that money would be dedicated to fighting inflation and reducing the deficit. Manchin also declined to comment on the details of tax reform he would like to see enacted. Again, we don't really know all the details yet. It's just a broad overview. I'm just saying reconciliation is for getting your financial house in order. I'm talking about a fair tax system, basically taxing the wealthy and the corporations and bringing money in to use for programs there. So the good news here is Joe Manchin is actually proposing his version of a stimulus package and actually in support of a lot of ideas here and apparently willing to vote for a lot of things here. The other good news here is that Republicans are actually coming around on a lot of things here. especially Senator Mitt Romney, Republican senator from Utah, is for the child tax credits. If you've been watching my videos, he actually has his own bill for $4,200 per year for child tax credits, which is actually more money than the Democrats gave with the expanded child tax credits last year. So if that passes, which actually has Republican support, there could be even a standalone bill for that. Again, child tax credits are obviously just one piece of the puzzle, but they do go out to 60 million children. And the January and February payments did not go out this year. And if they can pass it quickly, maybe they can get a March payment out or even a double payment for March out. But that could be more money potentially here. And what's interesting is that this is a Republican proposal. So we could see a bipartisan support bill here for the child tax credits. Of course, child tax credits are just one piece of the puzzle. We have Social Security raises proposals. We have enough money to send out a forced stimulus check or even two of them, or even some monthly checks with the $800 billion of stimulus money that's just sitting there waiting to be used. If you've been watching my channel, I've covered this, and we have multiple different states, cities, and counties that they've actually been stepping it up the best, sending out stimulus checks and stimulus programs, all sorts of different kind of buckets of money coming from lots of different states here. And it's still very, very early in the year. A lot of states are sending out lots of different kind of stimulus checks and stimulus programs here. So I will keep you up to date with everything here. It's going to be pretty interesting going forward here now that there's a lot of movement on this stuff. And what's going to go on here with Russia. I just don't have a good feeling. I just don't think that Putin's going to back down at all, unless they can completely financially crush his economy, which is actually looking like it's going that way. So I'll keep you up to date here with everything. Make sure to subscribe down below. If you haven't yet, it's completely free to do so you don't miss out on new videos here on our YouTube channel. So just click the subscribe button if you haven't yet, and also help us reach 400,000 subscribers. We're at 399,000. Remember that new videos come out here every day at 10 a.m., 3 p.m., and 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can click here to watch my newest video next. And you can click here to see the proposal for the $4,200 new stimulus bill. So click on one of those videos next. Thanks for watching, guys, and I will see you in the next video.